This is E&P Reports, a service of Editor and Publisher Magazine. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And brought to you this week by Adams Print Solutions, who invites you to check and select. Check your current commercial print pricing by getting a quote from Adams, then select them as your new commercial printer. Adams Print Solutions provides cost-effective, reliable printing, ad design, pagination, fulfillment, mailing, and more from 17 production sites across the U.S. Request a quote today and get 10% off your first 3 months of new service. Adams Print Solutions, apgprint.com, or call them 608-755-9473. And hi, once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. And this week was a learning experience for me as I host this edition of E&P Reports with DJ Doran, President and CEO at Doran Omni Media, Aequalitas Media. You may never have heard of DJ, but he's building quite an empire, at least that's what I call it, of LGBTQ-focused publications, websites, and an actual media network. And we're going to explore not only his business acumen, because he's turning some of these publications he's acquiring around within 45 days and putting them in the black, but about this demographic that is actually being sought after in a huge way by small businesses and large brands alike. It's a great dialogue. It woke me up about some of the basics of just running a media organization, and more importantly, why niche publications truly are a place where we may be wanting to put some of our energy and focus right now. So let's get to work. Let's go one-on-one as I chat with DJ Doran, President and CEO of Aequalitas Media. Well, DJ Doran, welcome to E&P Reports. I like where you are. Where are you right now? Is this your studio?
Yeah, it's my home studio in Chicago, Illinois. Beautiful Chicago, by the way, today. The weather is amazing.
Which is odd for Chicago, but thank God it's not winter yet.
No, but we know what's coming. So this is this is sort of like the last hurrah before the winter.
DJ, you pretty much have carved out quite a niche, if I can use that term, in the media industry. Not only have you aggregated in the publications you own tens of thousands of readers and subscribers and all that, but you've actually become the one-stop shop for the media industry to target a specific niche, the LGBTQ community. Is that pretty much summing up where you're at today?
Well, that's where we're heading. We are taking a big bite out of the market because now we have ownership of 5 legacy LGBTQ plus publications. We have our own ad agency, which goes out and finds national advertising for all of our own publications and others. And then, of course, we have all of we have the Aequalitas Content Creators Association, which is an organization of content creators, publishers, bloggers, vloggers, podcasters, videographers on YouTube, and so forth and so on. Which publications do you own now? Where are they? And you're running them out of Chicago, obviously, but why don't you run them down for us? Yeah, so the legacy publications are Echo Magazine in Phoenix, Arizona, Camp Magazine in Kansas City, Kansas, Out and About Nashville Magazine in Nashville, Tennessee, Gaycation Magazine, which is national LGBTQ plus travel magazine, and then Out Voices, which is part of our network, but also is going to launch, and you'll be exclusive for this. We're going to launch in Q1 of 2021 a print version of Out Voices here in Chicago. Excellent. These are hyper-local publications, right? I mean, I asked you this question when we did our pre-interview, that you still believe in, even though you're capturing a demographic, a niche, that it's still a local play. So you have offices in all these cities. You're running these publications, correct? That is correct. So each publication has its own operating office, if you will, where they're at. They are connected with the community, and like I was telling you, Mike, the publications, especially LGBTQ plus publications, have a unique relationship with their audience. It's almost a personal relationship with the publication. And so although the company itself, Aequalitas Media, is a national company, we encourage and we support local interaction with each of these publications. Now, we say that because it is so important to recognize that LGBTQ plus publications, according to the 14th annual CMI survey, have a higher trust factor within the community than even general media. So we have an obligation, and we have a built-in trust and an authenticity because we are part of the community to deliver the content that we deliver, and they believe it.
All right, before we get into the demographic, which I really want to hone in on, I'm going to first just get through the operation, if you may, because you've got, thousands of publishers listening to this now. I just keynoted the Niche Publication Annual Convention, and the first thing I want to know is you still have a strong belief in print, right? You're not shutting any presses down. Many people have decided. I mean, you and I both know I print a magazine, you're printing publications. Paper and postage are friggin' expensive. People are expensive. You still have ink in your veins, sir?
I do, and this is why I believe that is, number one, is when you print a publication, you have the time to print. As all of our publications are monthly, right? So we have time to investigate the stories, to flesh out the articles, to write content that has a really long shelf life, right? So people get it, they read it, they reread it, they pass it around, they read it, they reread it, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas the difference between that and our digital content is digital content comes and goes immediately. It doesn't have hardly a shelf life. So I believe that people want publications to take the time to really tell a story, right? Because they want to read it, they want to reread it, they want to take their time and so forth. They don't want to see it and then disappear. The other reason why I believe print is here to stay, especially niche print. Statistics show that general print media is having some difficulties, right? And niche publications are starting to have those difficulties. And here's the reason why: is when you have a niche publication like all of the ones that we now own, you have a specific audience and you have a specific story that you're going to tell. And I believe that most of these publications were not prepared from a business standpoint to run their publications in any other environment other than a protected environment. We work very hard for marriage equality and for equality and acceptance in the community. The byproduct of that is that now we have to compete with the big boys. See, it used to be that if you wanted to reach the LGBT community, you only had one pathway. You had to go through LGBTQ publications or content creators. Now you can advertise in Time Magazine. You can see you blah blah blah, and so our power was diminished because of being more widely accepted. And I think this forced smaller publications to rethink how they were doing their business. And when they got into that situation, they realized that, whoa, we don't have a strong enough business model. And I think that's where we are now. However, where I do think it is important to note is that there's power in a united front. So what our goal is for the company was to bring all of these smaller to medium-sized publications that did not have enough power on their own underneath one umbrella, so that umbrella company can have the power to speak to brands and agencies, especially on the national level.
Are all of them free? Every publication? Are they racked, mailed, combination of both, subscriber-based, or just thrown around restaurants? How do you get these things out?
They're racked. They're also mailed. We also do have a paid subscriber option for people that don't want to go anywhere. They want it delivered directly to their home. So we do offer that as well. But they are free, in essence, free publications.
And the websites are wide open too. No paywalls, no metering.
No paywall. We're watching closely how other websites are doing that, and some of them have been successful in having a paywall. And we may end up doing that as a business model for unique content or specialized content just for paid subscribers to the website. But here's where I think the real rub is, Mike. And I think that publications used to be able to just rely on their print revenue to survive. And they added all these things. A website, social media has added value. The problem now is that each publication almost has to be a micro media company, meaning that you have to not only print, you have to have a robust and engaged website with fresh content. You have to have an active social media. One of the things that we're also doing is we launch, and we have several different events that we host or sponsor throughout the year. And this is how we keep engaged to the community. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is the biggest thing, is a lot of these publications in our niche especially were bloated. We're bloated with unnecessary management costs, or operational costs. So when everyone was saying, oh, print is dying, why do you want to buy print publications? What I look at is I look at their P&Ls, right? Just from a business standpoint, right? You and I are business people. So I don't look at all of the extemporaneous stuff. I look at the P&Ls, and I look at the P&Ls and I say, that's got to go, that's got to go, that's got to go, that's got to go, that's got to go. Why are we spending here? Why are we spending there? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then what I also did is one of the most unique things, and this has not been done. So first thing is cut bloated expenses, right? Don't hire your friends. Don't hire people that are not competent to be in key positions, because you need them to run the publication. So tighten your ship, clean up your house, get your fiscal house in order, get your operational house in order. Second thing is, once I started to acquire multiple publications, I went to a printer and I said to the printer, I said, okay, the biggest part, and you as a publisher know this, every publisher knows this, the biggest cost of printing, or one of the biggest costs of printing, are the setup costs and the paper costs, right? So when you have 5 publications like we do now, you have 5 setup costs. Setup costs run roughly about 35 to 40% of your print run, right? So I went to the printer, I said, first of all, I want to standardize everything. I want the same dimensions for each publication. I want the same paper. I want the same cover paper and all of that. And I said, I want to print all of the publications all at once with different covers and different content within the same print run. And I want you to cut it at the printer, and then I want you to distribute it separately to where they need to go. And I was kind of surprised at this, because I thought, this is a big ask. You know, they're going to charge me extra, whatever. There was no extra charge.
Really?
Actually more efficient in printing, because we print in 8-page signatures. And so we just standardized everything. As a result, I now print 5 publications in one print run. I have 1 print setup cost.
And you just basically give them one big file, and they got to cut it between publications. They don't mind doing that, and then shoving it here, here, here. Do they mail for you as well?
They mail for us as well. And they ship. And so what happened is I saved 28% in overall print cost across the board for all 5 publications. And even with the added expense of shipping, because now the printer is out of Denver, and I'm happy to tell you the name, it's Publication Printers.
Oh my God, that's who we use at ENP.
Yep. So
the official printer of the Denver Broncos.
Yes. And David Greenberry is our.
I know Dave. And by the way, I have to, full disclosure, we did not know that before this broadcast. Dave just got some free advertising. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
He did. And Dave, a little bit about Dave, is a sailor, and I lived on that sailboat for 3.5 years. And so he and I talked about when he was buying his sailboat. So anyway, he's a great guy. He's a great believer in what I'm doing and how we're doing it. And he's been an invaluable resource to get this done. So long story short, 28% in print cost reduced right off the top of the line, and a little bit of increase in shipping costs and logistics in getting the publications there. We had to change deadlines so that things aligned well, but we were able to do all that. The bottom line is I'm going to say about 20% off of our print cost. Now that doesn't even include, a volume discount when we print more pages, because it's cheaper as you print more, et cetera, et cetera. So this is one thing that we did for all of the publications, Mike, is we go in and we look at them like businesses, and we say, okay, we need to be in the black by this date. And I have a SWAT team in my company, and these guys and gals, they have specific roles to go in. They assess a publication during the due diligence process before we acquire them. After they acquire them, they have a strategic plan on what gets cut, and they cut immediately. They do it very quickly, get right down to the bone where we need to be. And my charge to them is I want to be at parity. I call it parity. They have to be at break even. If they're in the red, they have to be at break even within 90 days of acquisition.
Wow. All right. Now, are you like becoming this corporate takeover guy, or is this just are people coming to you with their publications saying, keep me going? Do you keep them in some form of a partnership, the guy that started this in a city, or is all the stories different in how you've acquired these?
That's a good question, Mike. First of all, I'm not a corporate takeover guy. I used to be the president of the National Equality Media Association, and that organization was the nation's only not-for-profit publishers organization. And by that role as president of NEMA, I was able to interface and interact with many publishers from across the United States, and they all had the same common theme: struggling for advertising dollars, reliant on big pharma ads, because that's how they built their business around that, being stranglehold by the way things had been done for years and years and years, and they were just always operating month by month, right? So as I looked at these publications and I tried to give them advice, and we chatted about what their challenges were, what I realized is that many of the publishers had the same issues. They can't find competent sales or productive salespeople. They can't get advertisers to recognize the value in advertising in their publication, and they got very little or very few national advertising. So national advertisers would go to the bigger publications, but the small to medium publications were left out of that buy. And so they had to struggle each month. They had to go and find their local advertisers. Well, as COVID hit, and I mean, it was devastating to a lot in our industry, what I recognized was two things: an opportunity for my company to grow, and number two, how could I acquire some other publications that may not have been readily available under normal circumstances, but might now be an acquisition target under these trying circumstances. And my goal was simple: not to save LGBTQ plus media, but to stabilize media that I think matters in communities. Now, there's a story I'm going to share with you about a publication, several publications that were on national in scope, and the publication name was Frontiers Magazine. They were based in California. They have had a long legacy, 20, 30 plus years, I think, and they were involved in a takeover where another company was trying to do the same thing that I'm doing, but they were highly leveraged, and they took out some bad loans and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened was their infrastructure completely collapsed. And as a result, Frontiers went into bankruptcy, and the legacy and the archival data of that publication is now held hostage in a storage unit somewhere, right?
I have a similar story, but go ahead. All right.
Yeah. And so what happened is now you have, most of these are asset sales or intellectual property sales. There's no brick and mortar, buildings or things like that. So it's just intellectual property. But the problem is that archive data is a history of our community.
There you go.
And it is lost. So one of the stories that was told to me is that the very first person that contracted HIV, and his story is in the archives of that magazine. And
really?
We can't tell it. We can't use it. We can't make a documentary about it. We can't republish it because it's held in bankruptcy.
It's funny, not to digress or go into different, it took me 6 months to find my microfilm for editor and publisher. 2 companies that had it went bankrupt. I felt like I was a detective, and we're finally getting our archives up for 140 years. But then let's move on. Where are you in social media now? How large is your social media footprint? How large is your email database? And are those important to you?
Yeah. So one other thing I want to impart regarding archival data. This was a thing that has never been identified as a valuable asset before. And so as a result, it just came and went. And one of the things that I recognize is that archival data is extremely important, especially as we move into the digital age. And I'll
of course
that when I talk about this. So social media is extremely important. As you know, everybody uses social media now. Right. Everybody talks to everything. Mike, it used to be that a print magazine was the leader, and that was the lead of your portfolio, and then social media and website and even audio or video content was an added value. That is changing a little bit.
Right.
And our industry, especially in the niche industry, in the LGBTQ plus industry, has been slow to transition. And so one of the goals of Aequalitas Media is to accelerate the transition from print as the leader to digital content as the leader, because that's where we're heading. And we've been very successful with publications that we own. So I'll tell you why. One is social media is extremely important to engage with your readership. And you can engage with them directly, whether you use Instagram, we use for photos and for promoting. Twitter, to me, is a direct conversation with the people that follow us. And then Facebook, of course, is one of the oldest ones. And as a matter of fact, my funny story, my daughter said, I was telling her one time, I said, "Oh, I think I figured out Facebook." And she goes, "Dad, Facebook is for old people."
I've heard that too. When grandma found Facebook, the kids ran away.
Yeah, like they're all on Snapchat and TikTok now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I
Totally.
can't keep up. But it is worth noting that as a publisher, you need to be aware of the impact of these platforms, and we need to use them. All of the publications combined underneath Aqualitas' umbrella has about, I'm going to say 250,000 Facebook likes, Twitter followers, Snapchatters, or whatever. I mean, there's a lot. We have a 500,000, give or take 500,000 impressions a month total for just our own websites, our traffic. So we're already creating a large footprint, and I think it's important. One of the things that I gotta share with you that I think is a valuable insight that I learned early on is when you're a monthly publication, by the time you go to print, the stuff that you have written has already been dated. But there's a way for you to stay relevant. And one of the ways that we found to be very successful is by providing a weekly newsletter. So every week every publication sends out a newsletter to promote what's coming up in the magazine, to whatever breaking stories there are or whatever's tied to the website. So all of our publications interact with each other. So we share content back and forth.
That was going to be my next question. Are you sharing content among the network?
Yes.
And making it easy. Go ahead.
Yes. You can share content among the network, except digital content. And there's a reason for that. You cannot share digital content because it confuses Google.
Exactly.
Who is that? But what we do share is, let's say anyone within our network sees a story that they want to run in their print publication. We allow them to use it for free. All they have to do is attribute it back to the publication and the writer. And
Excellent.
so now we have, instead of having one publication trying to find stories on their own, we have 5 publications that now can share content from across the country that they would not have had access to. Now that ties into one other thing that we're doing as part of the Aequalitas vision for LGBTQ plus media. And you're exclusive to this as well. We're about to launch, like I said, the Out Voices publication in Chicago. But more importantly, we created a platform called outvoices.us. And outvoices.us already has a waiting list of about 25 LGBTQ plus publications that want to be part of the network. And the way this works, Mike, is very, I think, very innovative. And that is, each publication that has a website will do what's called a 301 redirect to the Out Voices website, right? And the Out Voices website will have subfolders with each one of their locations. So I'll just walk you through. Let's just say Phoenix. Phoenix does a 301 redirect of their website, echomag.com, to outvoices.us, and they have a subfolder. Their landing page looks just like the homepage on our homepage, right? Nobody will know any different. They can upload content. They can take away content. Echo gets to keep all the Google AdSense dollars. Any local banner ads that they sell, that revenue stays with them. By adding all of these websites under outvoices.us via 301 redirect, what happens is now Outvoices gets to use all of the Google Analytics statistics for each one of those websites as a collective.
I get it.
So, right?
Yeah.
So now, once we have 1 million impressions, which is our goal, and we're almost there, we have 1 million impressions a month, pardon me, then we can go to big national brands or agencies and say, hey, if you want to reach 1 million LGBTQ eyeballs, we can provide 1 million impressions a month. Now, here's the big difference here. One is that every member of that network, all 25 so far, they can use any content that any publisher publishes on their website for free in their print publication.
Okay.
No cost. So let's say you're in New York, let's just say, and you see a story in Echo Magazine in Phoenix that you like and you want to put it in your next print publication and you're part of the network, you can use that story for free. All you have to do is attribute it back to the publisher and the publication and the writer.
All right. So when I first asked you, when we did our, pre-interview, I said, why even bother being local? Why not just build one huge national LGBTQ environment? And you reminded me of what Fred Friendly said. I mean, I don't know, Fred Friendly, way back in the dark ages of CBS. Yep. I saw him at my first conference in the 80s at a National Association of Broadcasters. And he said, all news is local.
Yes.
Which is true. I mean, even now the Pew Research study that came out recently said one of the advantages, I hate to say advantage, one of the things that the COVID crisis is proving that is all news is local.
That's right.
People. So you're reminding me now why local journalism is important, because you could have just blown these things up, taken the one, I mean, talk about scale, just have one national publication, make everybody subscribe to it, and you mail it to them as a newsletter, run one big website. But no, you're employing local journalists.
That's right.
You got local salespeople, and you're playing to the community. So Mike, before we go into the demographic, I want to end on that because that's very important conversation. Let's stay with the business model. Are you growing? If someone's listening to this now and says, I want to be a franchise of yours, you're not doing it that way. They work for you. These are your operations, correct?
That's correct. That is correct. So here's the thing is, and I'll share this with you. It's a little bit early, but I will share it with you.
Go ahead.
Of the 5 publications that we acquired, 2 of them are already in the black 45 days after acquisition.
God love you. That's great.
Now, where everyone has doom and gloom about print and whatever, I think that you're right. There is a lot of doom and gloom in doing print the traditional way. But if you go in there and you say, okay, I'm not afraid to reduce my page count. I'm not afraid to reduce my distribution points, even temporarily. I'm not afraid to cut all the bloat and overhead costs that are associated with printing. I'm not afraid to be creative or think outside the box about how we print. Then you can get to the black pretty fast. Now, you're not going to retire right away, but if you get to the black, you can take a breath. And from that breath, you can say, okay, I want to build social media. I want to have more website presence. I'm going to do a newsletter, and that's going to be my conduit every week. So an example, realtors would never advertise in monthly publications because by the time the publication came to print, their product is sold.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But now that you have a newsletter, guess what? They can list all of their new listings in a week.
I get it. But okay, so now let's slide in then to the demographic. I found that fascinating. I mean, when you talk about niche products, rarely do you discuss, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but rarely are you saying, let me discuss someone's sexual preference or you're saying age, income, location. I always say whenever I'm analyzing a media project, I say there are 4 dimensions to a media consumer: young, old, rich, poor, near, far, man, woman.
Right.
You have added another dimension, which is nothing wrong. There's many niche products for many different flavors and shapes, but you're finding a massive advertising audience for this. Tell me why that niche is something that Cartier Watch would want to get their hands on. Tell me, what is it about the niche that you've explored and you're now growing by leaps and bounds that Madison Avenue wants to take a hard look at?
Okay, this is really easy for me to talk about because
you live and breathe it. I get it. Now tell everybody else.
$900 billion. This is a recent $900+ billion economic impact. $900 billion economic impact. The African American community makes up about 13% of the population. They spend about $1 billion, right?
Right.
I think it was $1 billion. So whatever. Maybe, hold on, I want to get my figures straight. The bottom line is the African American community makes up 13% of the population. The Hispanic community make up 18% of the population. We make up 4.5% of the population, yet we spend double what both of them spend combined.
proving that if so, now this is hard for me to fathom. You mean there's more spending involved because it's a higher income niche? I mean, help me understand this.
It's just that is that we have an economic power. We're usually double income, no kids, right? So we're affluent in that. We have a high discretionary and disposable income part. Right. We love to travel. We love to drink. We love to shop. That's our community. We pay a premium for, to buy products and services that brands demonstrate that they support our community or that they're welcoming. And we're extremely brand loyal. So if we shop with, let's say, I'm going to use Lexus as an example. Lexus is one of the largest supporters of the LGBT community nationwide. They advertise and spend tons of money advertising to our community, and we in turn buy many of their vehicles.
So it's a loyal demographic. It's a loyal niche.
That's right.
In other words, once a brand wins this niche, and that's one of the big challenges. I give lectures, and 2008 changed our society in so many ways. It made millennials cheap, and it killed brand loyalty. Supposedly in 2008, we dropped from 3 out of 4 Americans to be loyal to a product or service to 1 out of 4, which means end caps are more important now in a grocery store than a brand or a label. Do you follow my logic?
I do.
And McDonald's versus Burger King is nothing more than dollar menus, right? And value meals. I don't even say who has the better burger. Walgreens versus CVS is who's got the cheaper pop, toilet paper, and eggs. Right. You're telling me that if I win your demographic as a brand or a company or even a local haberdashery place, I'm going to own this consumer?
You will own that consumer. Here, I'm going to read something to you. This is from the 14th Annual Community Marketing Survey, and I was prepared for this. Companies that support LGBTQ equality will get more of my business this year. 80% of our community agree. 80%. I tend to purchase from companies that market to and support the LGBTQ plus community. 72% agree.
Wow.
When you look at these numbers, have you made conscious decision to make a purchase over the past 12 months, at least partially due to a company's LGBTQ inclusive outreach, employment practices, or supportive stance? 75% agree.
Wow. I don't know of another demographic that's that loyal at this time to anything.
I mean, if you're a brand or you're a marketing agency and you're looking at these statistics, these are at the top of the rung of the ladder.
Of course.
But here's the thing, Mike. Our community is so used to being marginalized that we lost sight of what our economic power is, and so we just accept crumbs from brands and agencies. We say, oh, we're thankful to even get that. They all come out of the woodwork during the Pride season in June, let's say, for example, which is when most prides are, and then they disappear for the rest of the 11 months, as if we don't shop, buy, use services, or travel, any other time of the year. So one of the goals of Aequalitas Media is to reclaim our economic power and to demand a seat at the table when these decisions are made. This is why one of the models that is making us successful is, number one, we're taking on these brands and we're cleaning them up. We're getting them tight. We're getting them so that they can survive and thrive going forward. The second thing is our agency is going out there promoting these brands and explaining and educating these media buyers as to how important the LGBT community is. And they don't want to be marketed to like everyone else. And that's the other thing I was going to explain. You cannot use generic, broad-based marketing techniques for everyone on the LGBT community. We have some unique things that are important to us, and it is extremely important to the LGBTQ plus community that the brands and services that we support by buying their products and services are engaged in and with the LGBTQ community. And that means visibly engaged. We want to see us represented on your website. We want to see us represented in your print advertising. We want to see you talking about us in your social media or in your video or any of that. And so often what happens, I think, that is so different in the LGBTQ community than any other community is, if somebody wants our business, we'll go and check them out. We'll go to their website. We'll go and see what they've done. And if it appears that it's just a money grab where they're just saying, hey, we just want your dollar. We want the pink dollar, as they call it.
Right, the pink dollar.
That has almost a opposite effect.
So let me bring up one last thought here. we're in a very polarized society. We do not discuss political, I mean, obviously, this society today is so polarized, it's scary. Is there a sympathy reader there now? I mean, because what's going on, there must be people even outside of the community that want to support the community and support the brands. Is any of that flowing into your audience as well? Is it going beyond just the niche? I'm just curious.
Well, I think that's a really valid question. We live in very tumultuous times, and I think that our community, is even more so affected by the policies of what's going on in Washington right now than any other community.
Oh no, and that's Supreme Court and all that. I get it. Yes, I mean,
and I guess to answer more to your question, the way I see it is that the LGBT community is very cognizant of what they buy, who they buy from, and where they buy it from. A lot of times based on what they see in the news in the political environment. I don't know how it permeates more than that into what we're doing. What we try and do is represent what our community wants and needs in our publications. We try and steer clear of as much politics as possible.
That was going to be another question. How politically active are your publications in the local markets?
Some of them are, actually all of them are quite active, and because they represent the community that they serve. And we encourage people to participate in the process. Okay,
gotcha. Any final thoughts for other publishers out there beyond just the fact that you're doing an amazing job aggregating this demographic, but you're also pushing all that aside, you're just operating this as a really functional business. One of the things we didn't discuss is your 23-year background in the military. I'm just curious. You flew C-130s, you told me. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You were in the Air Force?
Yep, I was in the Air Force.
And did this give you a little bit of the background and training you may have needed to run a business?
Well, I mean, that's all subjective, but yes, from my perspective, it does give me a little bit more of an insight on how I'm running my business. And the way I understand that each publication, each publisher has their own viewpoint on what their role is in the community. I've learned being in publishing that it's a tough business, Mike. You know that, right? You make there's not a huge margin in there. And if you're a single publication, it's even more difficult. Two things. I recognize that I need to have a larger portfolio of publications to grow to scale in order for it to be financially worthwhile. That's the first thing. And the second thing is I think that a lot of publications somewhere along the line, they viewed themselves more like they were community services rather like a community service rather than a business.
Exactly.
And so they go in and they don't keep their eye on the ball on the business side of things. And then they find themselves in the unenviable position where they don't have the revenue to support their community service. And so they close, and then they think going to digital only is the solution. And, that field is so crowded that it's easy to get lost, and it's not always a replacement revenue. You can't sell a $5,000 back page cost on a print magazine on a website.
That's true. And also, it's also your differentiator. It makes you different than all the other blogs and websites out there. You're still publishing a quality product. And in an industry where alternative weeklies, that sector are failing. I mean, I hate when I say that because we're big partners with that association, but many of them, because their distribution points were very hospitality driven, their advertisers were very hospitality venue driven. There may be a need in some of these communities for a voice like yours. Do you see more springing up? Will you start new ones? Are you looking, Are there cities that are barren of your voice? That's my question.
Yes, the landscape is vast.
It is.
So, you can only reach so much nationally. And the way I look at this is that the cost of producing a national publication is egregious. And that is another issue, talking about auditing, circulation auditing. Most of these free publications, none of my publications are audited. So auditing helps establish national advertising rates, right? So when you're not audited, it's really the Wild West. But here's to your point, is we can have a national voice, but we're building it through a patchwork of local voices instead of having one national voice with all of the overhead and being at the slave of a market that can go up or down. we're looking at it in a different way. If we have a patchwork of local voices all over the country, we still have a national voice. But if one of those markets starts to suffer, it's just like cutting off a branch on a tree. It doesn't kill the tree. We just prune that branch.
God, what a great analogy. We're going to leave it on that. DJ, if someone wants more information about just what you're up to and where or wants more information about how to become more involved in your network, how do they reach out to you? What's your email address?
Yeah, so they can either go to the Aqualitas website, which is aqualitasmedia.com. And
better spell that, puppy. Go ahead.
Aequalitas media.com. So Aqualitas is Latin for equal. And or they can just reach me directly at dj@aequalitasmedia.com, and I'd be happy to chat with you. And or you can just follow us on social media, any one of the publications, or follow me on LinkedIn as well.
And of course, you have a very popular podcast that's out of Chicago. I see that behind you. Those of you that are watching this on YouTube see it, but those of you listening on your favorite podcast channel, we invite you to listen to another podcast, The DJ Doran Show, on your favorite network. Am I correct, sir?
That's right. So we're hosted on Buzzsprout, but we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Pandora, almost every platform you can find us.
Excellent. I've really enjoyed this interview. Maybe we'll check back with you in a few months and see how it's growing and what's going on in your empire there, sir.
Absolutely, Mike. It was my pleasure. I always enjoy talking to you.
Great. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.